Hey everyone, it's Time Spiraled. We're back with some more MSEM. This time around, we've got some league matches to hold you off until the finals, which should be coming up tomorrow, I believe. So, hang in there for that. I'm pretty excited to see that finale. In the meantime, we've got one of the decks you might recognize from said finals. We've been following this deck all month. It's Blue-Red Phoenixes. On the other side, it looks like... Is this horrors? It looks like horrors. It is horrors. We've got cards like Debaser of Truth. We've got Molting Abomination, which I believe is its first time being tested out here. We've got cards like Monument to the Fallen Man, which can let you cheat in some 2-cost cards, which is quite nice. Selective Breeding lets you sacrifice your way up to a horror that you need, and of course you can pay some extra mana to get there. And, well, cards like Endless Helpless Souls are just great value, but also coalesce into horrors, so a lot of good stuff there. Over on the top, we've got Phoenixes. We're seeing some classic cards. We're going to hold that graveyard open for all of you so you don't miss anything that's happening here. We've got cards like Creative Salvage and Gift of the Phoenix, which are able to draw a lot of cards and put cards in the bin. And then, of course, we have cards like Data Recovery, which can recast them from the bin. And what's important is that since it's a cast, if you cast one spell and then you Data Recovery it, you will get your third spell, which is what brings back your Myoga Firebirds. Up in the hand, we have a few extra pieces of mana. We've got our first Plaxalotl Piari here. Very interesting cast where if you have spent exactly blue and exactly red this turn, you get to cast it without paying its mana cost and as though it had flash. So it comes in as well. And then whenever you cast your instants or sorceries with mana value, 1 for the first time each turn, you copy it. So it just does so much. Myoga Firebird is kind of like your Arclight here in this package. Was made far before Arclight, which is, just kind of funny. It's not quite the same trigger, but it functions just as well. Monument to the Fallen Man came out here on turn 2, which means that we have the option of dropping in either a Debaser or a Molting Abomination at instant speed. The opponent here, though, has quite a few options. We've got Unceasing Flames in hand and plenty of mana to use them and Data Recovery. So the thing with Unceasing Flames is it might start as just a shock, dealing 2 damage, but Plaxalotl Piari will copy it. Unceasing Flames does use Conjure technology, so will shuffle a large number of themselves into the deck. And then for every copy that's in your graveyard, Unceasing Flames will do additional damage. So it'll do 2 for the first one, and then it will do 3, and then it will do 4. And you see where we're going. So here we go. The other Unceasing Flames coming out of the hand. We've shuffled 9 copies of this spell into your deck, so the chances that we draw one are getting higher and higher. And finally, we are using Data Recovery to go to 4. And honestly, I think that's going to be an all she wrote here. We're going to have an attack here with 2 and with 3. We can't block anything in the air, I believe. None of these cards have reach. So that was a very quick turn 3 with just an incredible amount of firepower. Spoilers, we've been looking at this deck. It's been doing amazing in the Grand Prix. It's been doing amazing in League. People who are piloting it are performing quite well. They're not winning flawlessly, so there is counterplay. But in game ones, before sideboard graveyard pieces come in, it's a little harder to deal with. But you can expect to see some pieces changed for next month. And we'll be looking forward to giving you all that information in the October 2024 MSEM update video, which I'm very excited to put out. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So players went to sideboard. That was a very quick sideboarding. Wow, that was very fast. Let's check what's in the hands. I'm seeing just regular cards here in Blue-Red Phoenixes. So your Unquenched Greeds, your Against the Waves, Data Recoveries, Wheat from Chaff, and Plaxalotl. None of it is very bursty, but you can dig deep. So 2 lands and a bunch of ways to get it. You've got a red and a blue, so that's a Plaxalotl Piari as well. There is no Phoenixes, and there is no burn, so it's just, might have to consider that. Over on Ducky's side of the field, we've got plenty of mana. We've got Monument here. We've got Abominable Xenoflora, which grows from horrors. We've got Subdue, which can exile non-horror creatures, and exile is quite important considering the fact that your opponent's creatures, especially the Phoenixes, just keep coming back. So let's keep an eye and see how this goes. We've got cards like I was about to say Distant Path. Rousing Path, Distant I believe is the white-blue one. Rousing Path is part of End of Wolency's new land cycle. These are really great fast lands, and the fact that they have cycling is quite neat. So this card's in the sideboard. It's Fire Bloom. This was not what the card was as of before last month, but the council wanted to make a small shift, and we were looking to see if there was any instants or sorceries that weren't really actively being used that we could turn into can't be countered type removal. And well, what was formerly Fires of Station became Fire Bloom, and we can see 2 copies here in the hand. And yeah, I'm assuming we're going to see more of these in sideboards in the future. 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker can't be countered is quite neat, and it runs alongside one of its partners, which is the same amount of damage, but exiles instead. So depending on what you're going up against, these are pretty decent pieces of removal, especially if your opponent is playing to the board as Ducky will. I believe you do shuffle here, but yeah. In League, it's not. We can call judge, but there's no penalties like there are in Grand Prix, so it's quite a different beast. We've got Opalescent Palace here, which is quite nice. This is kind of like a pain land that turns off as soon as you have less life than your opponent. So if you're already taking the hits from the palaces, they almost turn off by itself. And in decks that want to play a lot of things on turn 1, turn 2, untap, these lands are doing a phenomenal job in helping that out alongside Heist Headquarters. And cards like, well, there was Nebula, but I believe that Nebula just hit the bin. We seem to be pitching our Mina Jeweled Minnows. Mina's an interesting little card. It's a 1/1 with flash, and you can cast the first spell that's an enchantment, instant, or sorcery with mana value 1 you cast each turn without paying its mana cost. So it's quite good. If you can land it actually on your turn, especially at the end of your turn, if it has flash, you can then use its effect during your opponent's turn to cast a piece of removal or one of your instant speed draw discards or a counter spell. So there's a lot that we can do. So we Plaxalottled out as we expected. And Monument to the Fallen Man is going to come out and going to bring Molting Abomination. It cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you get a tapped 3/2 colorless horror creature token, but you put a stun counter on it. So it takes a while for your extras to come out, but eventually, if you can keep landing in hits, your board will grow. And it's a 2/2 for 2, so it comes out relatively early. The Plaxalotl with power 2 here is not going to be able to block it. Now the question is if we're... Okay, so Xenoflora is coming out. When we make the horror off of Molting, Xenoflora is going to grow into a 3/2. And then, of course, we could flash in or bring in a Debaser of Truth off of the Monument. Krypnar is a zombie horror, which we can cast off of Gloom Cover Step. I'm really mincing my words today. My gosh, I apologize for that. And then we have Subdue False Idols, which costs 2 less for each horror you control. Well, there's 3 horrors on the field right now, right? Now we're up to our 4th, which actually means that the Coalesce half only costs 1 mana here. That's really nice. Debaser is quite neat. When it enters, if you control 3 or more horrors, your opponent has to pitch a lot of cards, which, Phoenixes normally doesn't care too much, but there is some stuff they want to be careful with. And it gives all your other horrors +1/+1. Of course, there's 2 Fire Blooms in hand, so there's a lot of removal that can come out. That's going to be probably on the Debaser, and then I would assume we're going to see the Molting get hit, would be my guess here. Now we're going to do the Mina, of course. So we're going to do Mina, and then during your opponent's turn, you're going to Fire Bloom at the first opportunity. So, yeah. So the stun counter is removed from the horror, so we'll get it next turn. Land is not necessarily what we wanted here, but we're still at 3 horrors, and we have a bit of mana, which actually means we can bring out Subdue False Idols, and we can still do it by casting Krypnar since it reduces it by 2. Okay, we're actually going to put a Fire Bloom on the big Trampler rather than the one that's producing a bunch of horrors, which, again, could make sense. I agree that that's a definite play that can happen here. We're going to get this other one. I don't believe we've played a land this turn. So there maybe is a thought to... okay. Interesting. Well, we have 3 horrors. I mean, maybe we're just holding off for a better target. It happens. Okay, Unceasing Flames takes out the molting here. Um, not quite the oh well. We should still be able to get to our 7-9 here because the back half is currently costing 4. No, we're kind of off the mana. That would have been maybe an important thing to play earlier while we still had the horror density. I wonder if either I misread a moment, but all right. Well, Kripnar comes back anyway. At the beginning of combat, but then you sack it in a combat. So okay, that's why you couldn't really use it for that, but you do always get a horror enter the battlefield ability. So Unceasing Flames is just being free casted here with Mina, which is cute. If ever we draw anything that's not like, a basic swamp, that'd be great. I don't know why we're not playing them. Is it that we're trying to hold up the fact that we only have swamps? I don't know. I'm assuming this is going to be endless hard cast here. Your opponent's got no cards in hand, so mill 5 cards. And you can choose up to 2 non-land cards with mana value 2 or less that were milled this way. You get to cast 1, and the rest goes into your hand. So, yeah, quite good. Obviously, as a mana value 3, it can't hit itself, but, fetching an Abominable Xenoflora, and then you can fast in Debaser. So here's the thing. I'm not so sure about that. It is if you're playing around counter spells, but there is the fact that you could probably use it. Yeah, let's see if we're going to rewind that. Yeah, okay. As far as I know, when no information has changed, I don't know. You kind of want to use that on your opponent's upkeep, or sorry, not upkeep, but like when they actually have cards in hand, because you're gonna have 3 or more horrors when you flash it in. Mina goes and chumps the 3/2 horror. Card is drawn, and yeah, the baser is gonna say, all right. I was wondering if we were gonna see that. All right, and that's a concession from our Phoenix player. So we're 1-1 with some fast matches here. This horror deck is actually playing quite neat today. I'm actually quite excited to see how it performs. Phoenix has been, I wouldn't say boogeyman, but has been like a really tough deck to beat. For a while, we thought it was going to be Green Elemental Scam or Green Elemental Ramp that was going to be the big deck of the format, and then like right before it, someone's like, hey, Phoenix is actually completely busto. And Phoenix has been performing really well, which is why it's made it all the way up to the finals. So Green Elemental did pretty well. There were some in the top X, but they didn't quite make it to the end. So, all right, looks like we've got a keep 6 and a keep 7 here. So we've got Creative Salvage, which is always, Creative Salvage, Wheat from Chaff are great ways of getting certain cards to your graveyard, and the reason Wheat is great is because you draw, then you discard. So we're going to throw out 2 Whisperwood Phoenixes. So what they do is they create Ash tokens when they are, I believe, destroyed or discarded. And that reads, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a feather counter on it, and then when you get to 3, you sack it and you bring back a card named Whisperwood's Phoenix. So 2 Ashes are here, so the 2 Phoenixes can come back. We have a tapped Salome's Messenger here as a 2/1, and whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you can bring Salome's Messenger from your graveyard to your hand. It's also a horror, which means it will just keep providing value. Anapraxia's Endeavor here in the hand is quite good. It's got a lot of interesting modes, the most important one being the exile target player's graveyard, and that's actually going to hit pretty hard here. There's going to be 3 Whisperwood Phoenixes in the graveyard, so next turn, unless we fire off 3 spells here, I don't believe we can. Let's see. That's not a non-creature, so those aren't going to grow. That's not a non-creature, so that's not going to grow. So, okay, so we put a lot of creatures on the board, which is good. These aren't instants, which means our second mana, if we do the Anapraxias here, does mean we shred the 3 Phoenixes, which is, a big hit. But it's instant speed, so you've got some flexibility in how you do it. Okay, so Unceasing Flames is going to double up. All right, we're going to get a bunch of copies. They're all going to go in the deck. Cracking the Clue. I'm going to draw a card. Fire Bloom is neat. Fire Bloom is neat. And it looks like it would be the third spell here for these ashes, but I mean, if we're doing things correctly, we're just going to fire off the Anapraxia's Endeavor and exile the target player's graveyard. So, like, which is good, because obviously the ashes aren't going to do much. But you are still being hit for 3. So, you know, you can rebuild your board, but now you don't have to worry too much about a lot of recurring threats over from the Phoenix's side. I mean, until more Phoenixes are drawn. But we hit 3 of the 4 Whisperwoods. There are usually others, though. There's going to be a monument, because again, it refunds itself, which is quite nice. And it means you can drop in either of these at instant speed. Nothing with flying, so if Phoenixes come out, it's going to be a little more troublesome. Spirit Script is nice. Not necessarily like the best card that you want, especially because you're taking a bit of life from all this. But you draw 2, you discard. So we can find either more Phoenixes, or we can put the spare Plaxalal Piari in the discard. There's quite a few things we can do. I think either one of our players is... Okay, cool. Okay, well... I'm not sure if you want the Nebula here. I mean, a spare Plaxalal... Okay, well, we keep the Nebula. We're firing off the double Unceasing. That was for sure we were keeping that. Currently, Spirit Script is in the yard, and the cool part about Spirit Script is it becomes a copy of something, so it's actually going to be 3 damage. There's going to be quite a bit here. And then, again, we're throwing in, like, a ton. There's already been 6, and I think we're up to 12. Plus, originally, that's been 2. There's a lot of copies in here. We're at least above 12 copies. So the chances that you draw them are quite high. And we haven't even gone to combat here. Okay, but no combat. So flashing in the Molting Abomination. So the question is here, if we draw a... Okay, well, it's not a 4th mana, and we don't have white, unfortunately, for Subdue False Idols, which is maybe a little more annoying. Yeah, your Plaxalal Piari can't block, so you're going to get the 3/2 here tapped. Anapraxias can obviously gain you 4 life, and you can exile the graveyard again if you need to, but the removal will not hit the Plaxalotl. So Fire Bloom is neat. We're bringing in Debaser here to try and hit both cards. You can free cast the Fire Bloom off of Mina. Yep. So double casts here. So it's going to get rid, I'm assuming, of the Debaser and the Molting, but then we're going to lose the Nebula. But, I mean, I think you're totally fine in that happening. I'm assuming we're going to swing in for 3. The opponent's really close to dead. Okay, we're letting that happen. We're not using Anapraxia then. At least not for the removal on Mina. I would assume we're going to either bring back a creature from our graveyard and gain 4 life, is what we're going to do here. I think this is what I would want to do. Nope. Yeah. Yeah, often it's the exile mode, but here the 4 life is actually like an extra turn. And you can get back a creature like Molting Abomination. We're just putting the cards that were in the yard back into the graveyard, because I think one of our players assumed it was going to be the graveyard exile and just threw everything into exile. So should be... Yeah, we can just check back here. Mina, Plaxalotl, use the ability. So it should be everything here. Nebula, Fire Bloom, Unceasing Flame, Spirit Script, Plaxalotl, Fire Bloom. That sounds like 6 cards, yeah. The white's quite important. Subdue here is big. I mean, we're at 6 life. We would like to be at higher than 6 life, but you know, every horror we have makes it cost less. We can play out molting for free. We could actually selective breeding. We have the mana. Like, we're not playing anything else, right? We're definitely using the monument on this. So you can pay 3 into X, so you could go fetch a horror with mana value less than or equal to 3. I don't know if there's anything at 3 in the list. I don't know if we've seen one, and I might have missed it, but I know for a fact there's a lot of 2 ones. Oh, sorry, we had 3. X equals 2. X equals 2. So we've seen Debaser, we've seen Molting, we've seen anything else at 2? We saw the Coalesce, like Endless Helpless, but oh, we saw the one that that grows, right? There it is. Yeah, the Abominable Xenoflora. 2/1 Trampler. Whenever another horror enters, put a counter on it. Right. So we're sacrificing one of the heist headquarters here to bring out a clue. Well, that's kind of sad. We would have been able to play the Firebird, but maybe we draw into a land. It's not a land, and we did not cast an instant or sorcery, so data recovery is not going to do much. So Molting comes out. We now have a 3/2. Still nothing in the air, though, so that Phoenix does some work. It's a shame that the heist had to go, but I think that was still the correct decision, right? Not knowing what was coming up, and you can sacrifice them to go get some things. There's, you know, there's reason to do so. So this is Endless Helpless Souls. The interesting could be if we find 2 horrors that cost mana value 2 or less. Because what we could do is we get to cast 1. That could be a 3rd horror, bring a 4th into our hand, play it. That's 4 horrors. But we used the white. We had to use white. So we don't have actually access to... Okay, well, that's at least going to be a free monument. Subdue is and Endless are actually not horrible to find because like they go to the graveyard, especially this one because it costs less. So I'm assuming we're going to get the Monument to the Fallen Man into play, Salome's Messenger to our hand because we can play Salome's Messenger? Or not? Okay. I guess we wanted... If we're playing around the fact that the Mina deck has a counter for creatures, I totally understand. So if that's what we're doing. Oh, keeping no blockers, huh? If we draw even a piece of damage or like an unceasing, that's it, right? So okay, well, because there's 1/2 already in the yard, right? So and data recovery can get it back. So interesting that we didn't use Mina, but and then yeah, the data recovery is just gonna wrap that up. Yeah, life totals got pretty low there. It was hard to get it back. Phew, some tight games here. It really depended on, yeah, as the players are saying, really depended on what they could have drawn. If you're liking Phoenixes and you want to see it get one last big chance to shine, definitely come and stop by on the finals video that'll be coming up soon. And yeah, a lot of cool stuff for the end of the month. And we've also got Revolution has their finals, I believe, coming up in the weekend. And then after that, well, we're already almost at a fresh new month. So a lot of cool stuff to stay tuned for. So thanks again for sticking around. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye.